Everybody's got a price, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a pod, it's the $1 million man. Podcast in demand. Understand, everybody's got a price. $1 million man. Everybody's got a price.
What's up, everybody? It's Marcus D'Angelo, and we are back for another episode of Everybody's Got a Pod. And of course, I'm joined by WWE Hall of Famer, master of the $1 million dream, Ted DiBiase. Ted, what's going on?
Hey, Marcus, it's all you, buddy. Everything's good. Everything's good on this end. I woke up another day, and every time you wake up another day, it's a good day.
That is a good day. And man, hopefully we're going to make for a good day for our listeners this week, because we are continuing the story of your run in WCW. And when we last left off, you had just turned your back on Kevin Nash at Spring Stampede, which would signify the end of your time with the NWO. Man, we've got plenty to discuss here, and I'm really excited to talk about it. Let's get into what was happening in the company during this period, because, man, there's a lot to cover. As for you during this time, you do a disappearing act of sorts following Spring Stampede and your apparent departure from the NWO at the time. You'll go to Tel Aviv, Israel, with the 700 Club during this period of time, and you'll be off TV. Tel Aviv, pretty cool that you made the trip over there for the 700 Club. Do you have any memory of that trip?
Oh, my gosh. It wasn't just Tel Aviv. I mean, I saw all of Israel. It was a trip. It was a trip to the Holy Land, and I walked where Jesus walked. The remains of the synagogue in Capernaum. Now, Capernaum is they call it the town, Jesus's town, because that's where he stayed basically during his adult life, is Capernaum. And there's the ruins of the synagogue that was there in his time. And so I'm standing in the middle of the ruins of this synagogue, and I'm going, I'm standing somewhere where God has stood. That's pretty cool.
Pretty incredible.
Know that you're in a place where he was. And then another place, they can't say for certain that it's the tomb, but I would lay money on it that it is. They call it the Garden Tomb. And again, if you read scripture, the man who offered that tomb for Jesus was a follower of his and was a very wealthy man. And so you go back that far, and to have a tomb like that of that nature, and it's in the garden. and so they say they can't say for absolute certainty, but I believe that it's the place where they laid Jesus, and again, like they said, on the third day, the stone was rolled away, and the trough for the stone to roll in was like, it was like this wide. I mean, that's big. A big stone. I mean, a thick stone, an enormous thing. Anyway, they don't have the stone there, but the trough that it rolled. I mean, okay, I'll put it this way. I wear a size 14 shoe. I could put my foot in that trough, and there's still room on either side.
Wow.
Yeah. And so to go there and to go to be out on the Sea of Galilee and know that this is where, Bethlehem. I mean, they can't say for certain again, but they built a church in this place. It's kind of like they built a church over it, and it doesn't look like a barn or anything anymore. But they honestly believe that this was the location where he must have, been born. Anyway, if you're in Bethlehem, you're where Jesus was born, and it's only 5 miles from Jerusalem. I didn't know that either.
Man,
just I don't know, just so many things. And again, I've been there 3 times. I went again. I went with another group.
man, what an amazing journey, and really cool that, I'm sure, Eric Bischoff, for all of his flaws, which, of course, a lot of people are quick to mention how he maybe wasn't always doing things right there. I can also picture him saying like, "Oh, you're kind of taking like a spiritual journey. Cool, go do your thing," and not giving you a hard time and saying, "Yep, when you come back, we'll repackage you," that sort of thing. So it's cool that you had the opportunity to kind of break away from wrestling for a while at the end of one angle, go and
Yeah.
have kind of a fun spiritual journey, then return, with a fresh coat of paint.
Yeah. Well, and then everything had changed. I mean, my whole direction in life had changed, and and eventually I started a ministry which I called Heart of David Ministry, and which is evangelism. I still believe that's my calling. And, I still go out, I get invitations to churches to speak, and I still go, and there's nothing greater that a man can share than his testimony. What did God do in your life? I could quote scripture. I mean, pastors get up and quote scripture and read scripture every week, and that's great. And it is you're constantly intaking new knowledge. But the strongest thing that you could tell somebody is how God changed your life. Yeah, and nobody can argue with that.
Right.
there is no argument. And so, anyway,
Man, sounds like a cool journey that you got to go on, though,
yeah,
on a few occasions over there to Israel, and yeah, it's man, really neat that you got to. Again, you've kind of been on the road and doing the wrestling thing up to that point for years and years and years, and now it's like, okay, let's step away and investigate something that's more important right now,
yeah,
and that's what you
yeah,
did.
I did.
So really cool. Well, while you're gone behind the scenes, Hall, Nash, and Six are going to be having issues with some legendary names in Roddy Piper and Ric Flair. NFL player Kevin Green was set to join Flair and Piper in a 6-man tag team match against Hall, Nash, and Six at Slamboree 1997. The sticking point here was that Hogan was busy with some TV commitments and would not be working the pay-per-view. And Flair and Piper felt that Six was not a big enough star for the match. Hall and Nash, who are real life really good friends with Sean Waltman, took exception to the comments and would say that Six will be the best worker in the match who can help the whole thing get over, which implies that Flair and Piper are too old to go well enough to carry the match themselves. Man, Ted, all of that really happened behind the scenes. All of this drama is really going on where it's a predetermined match, it's a
Yeah.
storyline, and these guys are having these issues. Before we continue on with the drama here, which will really come to a head soon, I do want to ask your opinion. Which side of that argument would you say that you fall on? If somebody had asked your opinion at the time, like, where do you land on that?
Well, I mean, and again, Sean's a good friend of mine, but at that time, he wasn't a big name on for any organization, and so it's kind of like if you want to make him a big name, well, then you make him a big name, and the only way you can make him a big name is by letting him have matches where he gets featured and he wins and he wins and he wins and is elevated to that position. So, and I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I mean, me looking at it, from where I am now, it would have said, yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, I could see where those guys had an argument.
Yeah, it's a tough call just because it's
It
like
is. It really is. I mean, and again, you know, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, they were relative newcomers themselves. You know what I'm saying?
right. And here's these old veterans who are kind of saying this is our opinion, and Hall and Nash are kind of discarding it and saying no, you're wrong. So you
Yeah,
can see where these guys would have some real
yeah,
issues with it.
yeah. So to me, I'm glad I wasn't physically wrestling anymore because I had a ringside seat for all the drama.
Ric Flair is 48 years old at this time, and Piper was 43. Did you feel like those guys were clinging on a little bit too long at this stage of their career? Maybe it was time for them to hang it up or start to take a back seat.
Um, not as long as they could go.
Mm.
I mean, Rick, how old would you say he was?
Rick was 48 at that time, 1997.
Really?
Yeah, so he was getting up there in age. Piper is 43, and it's one of those situations where you can see both sides of the argument where these guys are saying like, hey, we're the established veterans around here. You guys need to show us more
Yeah,
respect.
but again, but wrestling being what wrestling is, it's kind of like if you still got it and go for it and can go for it, go for it. I mean, it's like it's like there's the battle you see in the ring, and then there's the battle you see that you don't see. It's backstage. That was just and I thought about that later. I thought, man, I wonder if I can. I probably could have gone a couple more years. I mean, yeah, I was in as good a shape as any of those guys. But again, it was a personal thing. Not gonna. And to be honest, I am very happy today that I did that. I mean, because I look at guys who kept going, maybe even to 45. But, you go back, like that 50, 53, 54, 55-year-old guys still climbing in the ring and wrestling. Now, I mean, I have had both my knees replaced, but other than that, I mean, I'm probably, I mean, I just had a checkup with my heart doctor. He said, Ted, he says, I doubt if you'll ever die of a heart attack. And I said, why? He says, you have the arteries of a much younger man.
And to your point, if you had hung in there and kept wrestling, you're being harder on your body. Could have been harder on your heart too. You're putting your heart through more paces, and also some of the drugs you might have taken, muscle relaxers and stuff, so that you can ease your back and give yourself a little relief. That could have impacted your heart. So really, it's getting out of the business when you did, probably one of your greatest decisions.
Yeah. And, I have a lot of people tell me, and they'll ask me, so, well, Ted, how old are you now? And I go 70, and 70? A lot of people don't think I look 70. Of course, I'm looking at myself right now, and I think I do.
Well, in my opinion, to coin a phrase, you look like $1 million, pal. One of the complaints when it comes to the older wrestlers in WCW, such as Flair, Hogan, Piper, Savage, etc., was that they were taking up valuable TV time and younger stars weren't getting the opportunities that they deserved. That narrative is actually going to become a storyline during the Vince Russo era in WCW. Ted, when you were coming up in wrestling, how did you feel about it when an older performer would come into the territory or take up big chunks of TV storyline? Would it bother you, or were you excited to have an old established veteran there?
Well, for me, I I grew up in the business. There's a couple of guys, that have told me stories about having had the opportunity of wrestling my dad, when obviously before he was gone, but that he had helped them considerably. In other words, I mean, where did I learn to wrestle? I didn't learn it in the gym. I learned it in the ring in front of a live crowd. That's the old school. And so, you know, any guy that comes along that's got that savvy, that gets it, you know, I'd say, hey, come on, I can learn from you.
So you were excited to have older established veterans come in because you felt like they could make you better.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like it. That's
yeah.
a cool perspective. Not a perspective a lot of guys shared, I'm sure.
Guys, you know, some of the guys that I wrestled when I first started for Bill Watts, you know, there was a guy, oh my gosh, Buck Robley,
Hmm.
a guy named Bruiser Bob Sweetan. You know, he wasn't very. I mean, he was a great worker. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, Jake has said he was a piece of shit human being, but he taught people a lot.
Yes, couldn't say it any better. Yeah, that's right. He was a piece of shit human being, but he was a great worker. Buck Robley, another guy. You know, and oh gosh, there's a bunch of guys that I got. Oh my gosh, uh, they were a tag team.
Pat Patterson and Ray Stevens.
Yes, I had another really good match. I had a really good match with Pat Patterson when they first brought me into the old WWF. They brought me in as a North American champion.
Wow.
And I dropped the North American Championship belt to Pat Patterson on TV as I was leaving New York the first time. And, you know, he's another guy that unbelievable worker. Great. And great savvy about the business. Understood the business very, very well. So
Really cool that you have that perspective on these older guys and what they can teach you, which again, pretty rare. This tension behind the scenes with the Nash and Hall and Piper and Flair is going to lead to promos on TV that very closely resemble real life behind the scenes issues. And watching it back years later, man, you can see where people might get worked into a shoot, which is exactly what happens here in June. We'll discuss that shortly. Okay, let's take a minute to discuss our fantastic sponsor that is changing the lives of men everywhere. Of course, we are talking about Bluechew. Are you ready to perform with the confidence of the $1 million man in the bedroom? Are you ready to leave your partner feeling like $1 million? Are you ready to get that thing so hard you could go hunting with it? If the answer to all those questions is yes, it's time for you to give Bluechew a try. Bluechew can help increase your performance and regain that old confidence where it counts the very most. Bluechew is a unique online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. You can take them anytime, day or night, so that you can plan ahead or be ready when that opportunity springs up. The process is simple. Sign up at bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll receive your prescription within days. The best part of it, it's all done online. You can forget about those visits to the doctor's office, no more weird, awkward, uncomfortable conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy anymore. It comes right to you. Bluechew's tablets are made right here in the USA and prepared and shipped direct to your door in a discreet package. But you know the drill, guys. There's not going to be anything discreet about your package. Men everywhere have never been more excited to see their mail carrier arrive, because when your package arrives, your package arrives. Listen, I know what your next question is. Will it actually work? Why don't you try it for free and find out for yourself? Something free from the $1 million man? That's right. You can try it right now for free. All you have to do is pay $5 shipping. That's it. Place your order now and give your partner a very pleasant surprise. Women are attracted to confidence, and Bluechew can help give you confidence where it counts. Don't wait any longer. Time to chew it and do it. Take advantage of our special deal. Again, you can try Bluechew free when you use our promo code EGAP at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's bluechew.com, promo code EGAP, and receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information, and we thank Bluechew for sponsoring Everybody's Got a Pod. Rumor has it at the time that Kevin Nash is involved in another power play of sorts behind the scenes, allegedly trying to push Kevin Sullivan out of the booking position. Sullivan is going to take a leave of absence in late May, and his booking duties will be assumed by Terry Taylor and J.J. Dillon. Ted, we as fans hear a lot that Kevin Sullivan, brilliant guy, really good worker, fun character, but maybe he sometimes dealt with substance abuse issues behind the scenes. Did you ever witness any issues with Sullivan behind the scenes in WCW?
Not personally, no.
I had a feeling that was going to be your answer just because you were good about minding your own business.
Yeah. Some guys, if I mean, there are guys who everybody knew, he's high on pot, or he's taking this or he's taking that. But, I kept my nose clean and mind my own business.
Smart policy, folks. Another piece of news in the wrestling world outside of WCW at this time was that Vader is going to be placed under house arrest in his hotel room in Kuwait after attacking a TV personality on Good Morning Kuwait for questioning the legitimacy of wrestling. This pretty closely resembles the John Stossel, Dr. D situation from years prior. But, man, getting detained in Kuwait during a WWF tour is some pretty serious shit. Ted, I'm sure over the years a number of people have asked about wrestling being fake, and I'm sure a few of them have rubbed you the wrong way. How do you usually handle that situation? You don't seem like a guy who's going to be putting your hands on somebody.
No, it's kind of like, every situation is different. In other words, by the time Vince came along, and I'll be honest with you, Vince was really right. It's like, how many people watch wrestling and really believe it? Not too many. I mean, if you're a good storyteller, you draw the people into the story you're telling, and everybody loves the good guy and boos the bad guy, and that was always part of wrestling. If you're a heel and you're the kind of heel that gets a lot of heat, you better be a tough SOB too, because you never know when you're going to get tested.
Mm-hmm.
By a fan. And for me, it was only a couple of times, and it was like the way it was said, the indignant way it was said, is like, you guys are just a bunch of phonies. And I grabbed this one guy. I grabbed him by both his collars, and I literally picked him up off the ground and put his back against a wall in a bathroom. I mean, his feet are dangling this far off the ground. I said, what I did first was I just open hand slapped him as hard as I could. And then I picked him up and put him against the wall. And I said, was that fake, dumbass? You think that was fake? And I would do that. But, it's kind of like, okay, everybody, but it's the way, if it's done in a smart ass way, you're going to get it. You're going to get it. Don't tell me that I'm I would like to see anybody get in the ring and do half the shit that we used to do without getting hurt. I mean, there's an art to what we do.
And, do you think you would have put your hands on an interviewer if somebody had said something about wrestling being fake to you during an interview?
If somebody was interviewing me?
Yeah, like similar to the Dr. D thing, this thing with Vader in Kuwait. Do you think you would have escalated that far where it's like, okay, I'll show this little bastard it's not fake?
I mean, if somebody said to me, in a very disrespectful way, well, it's all a bunch of fake bullshit or something like that. Yeah, I'd have throttled him for sure.
So I might have misspoken earlier whenever I said you a nice guy wouldn't put your hands on somebody.
Well, and again, but when you're talking about attacking the business that I grew up in, and attacking it in a disrespectful way.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole lot of people who understand that wrestling is show business, but they like it and they respect, and they have a respect for what they see us do out there. But just some old redneck, yeah, you bunch of phony, oh yeah.
Good for you, man. I wouldn't take that shit either.
Yeah.
Slamboree is going to take place here in 1997, and one of the big matches there is Steve McMichael taking on Reggie White, which, when you consider the fact that Steve was the veteran wrestler of the two of them, is an absolutely insane match to put on pay-per-view, in my opinion. Reggie reportedly received about $500,000 for his work with WCW to build the match and step into the ring at Slamboree here. Dad, do you think that kind of investment is justified because of the mainstream publicity involved, or do you lean more toward it being a waste of money?
How much?
$500,000, $500,000 for Reggie White's involvement, reportedly.
No, not at that time. I mean, Reggie White, his name he's a legendary football player,
Mm-hmm.
not wrestler. And the deal with McMichaels was but I don't know. I think he should have got paid well because of the name he had, but his name is recognized. You recognize him not as a wrestler, but as a very successful and very good football player. Now he's stepping into the ring with a bunch of wrestlers, and should he have been paid well? Yeah, but I don't think that much.
Man, it's a lot of money.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of money now.
Yeah.
Back then,
it was crazy money back then. And yeah, Reggie's like great mainstream publicity, but man, it's I think I'd rather spend $500,000 on advertising or something if you need publicity.
Yeah.
Well, everything went fine in the match between the teams of Hall, Nash, and Six, with Piper, Flair, and Green, with the NWO guys doing a clean job in front of a rowdy North Carolina crowd. The issue would finally come to a head behind the scenes at Nitro in June, however, when Hall and Nash faced Piper and Flair in a tag team match. Apparently, Piper refused to do what they agreed upon when they got in the ring and called for the finish about 6 minutes early, which pissed Nash off to no end. Kevin Nash confronted him in his private dressing room afterwards. Piper would say that he double-legged Nash and threw him out of the room, but Nash and a few other witnesses say that Kevin Nash slapped Piper, and both Piper and his bodyguard backed down from Kevin Nash, who's 7 feet tall, pretty intimidating guy.
Yeah.
Man, this is two of the biggest stars in wrestling getting into a shoot fight behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Do you remember hearing about any of this, Ted?
I don't know how I missed that, but you keep throwing things at me. I'm going, what? I never heard that story. Of course, I wasn't there.
Right. You were in Kuwait.
A story like that, you would think I would have heard from somebody.
You would think so. Not Kuwait. You were in Tel Aviv. So I'm guessing that that one you just missed it. But man, it's Nash has said since that Piper was a bully and a fake tough guy, and this isn't the first time that we've discussed Roddy on the show refusing to do business the way that maybe most people would have agreed on. Nash himself had a reputation for being a shit disturber behind the scenes. It's a little hard to determine fact from fiction in this one. When it comes to who is in the wrong, you were around both guys, Ted. Who would you say would you find to be more antagonistic of the two?
Boy, I don't know. I mean, I've grown to know Kevin a lot better, over the years, and back then, and of course, I wasn't wrestling. I wasn't physically wrestling anymore. I was a manager by then, But I looked at these guys, him and Scott Hall, good buddies, and they're I get it. They're full of piss and vinegar, and they're the newcomers, and they want to show everybody who they are. That's okay, But time is everything. The thing lacking is good leadership.
Mm-hmm.
if those guys had been working for Cowboy Bill Watts would have stymied that crap. He'd have nipped it in the bud. And it's kind of like, if you're going to work for me, you're going to work for me, and you're going to do exactly what I tell you to do. And if you can't do that, there's the door.
When you start introducing guaranteed contracts in wrestling, you really start to take control out of the promoter's hands, unless you put some kind of a clause in there or something that like, hey, you've got to be at these dates and you can't behave this way, et cetera, et cetera. But man, I don't think that those clauses existed. And if they did, they weren't being enforced. So
Yeah.
man, tough time to be a promoter when you start guaranteeing shit like that. Well, I have to ask while we're here, you've said before that you got along with just about everyone in wrestling, but you also had a long career, Ted, and you saw and did a lot of stuff across multiple territories. Did a backstage argument that you were in ever come to blows or nearly come to blows?
No, and I can't remember any confrontation really with any wrestler like that was I mean it just didn't happen. I would I can't think of anybody that I didn't get along with. I mean, there might be some names or a couple guys or whatever. If I didn't like them or thought they were full of crap, then I would just go my own way. But I mean, I don't know. There was no.
Never a physical altercation.
No.
Wow.
No, never a physical altercation ever.
That's really impressive, man.
And like the one guy that I kind of thought was a smart ass, my buddy Jim Duggan got to him before I did.
Matt Bourne. So let Jim handle the that work. Well, the other big piece of news from the time is that Curt Hennig will make his jump from the WWF to WCW, and the month of June will close out with his debut for the company. Hennig is a big-time star, but at this time, one of the criticisms of WCW is that they were becoming WWF light, meaning that a lot of the stars established in the WWF who were arguably past their prime were arriving in the company. Would you say it's a fair criticism?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, well, I mean, except for Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, those guys are, and Sean Waltman.
They were past their prime, yeah.
No, they weren't past their prime. They were in their prime,
Now, Curt Hennig, on the other hand, has not worked a match since 1993 at this point, and after Lloyds of London refused to give him a $300,000 payout for the industry that sidelined him, he felt forced to return to the ring. So, Ted, I think we may have talked about Lloyds of London before, but let's discuss it again. You yourself had the policy and were able to collect from it when you retired in 1993, correct?
That's correct.
What?
Yeah, and and I mean, it was no. There was no, anything about it. I mean, I went to I started the thing that, I mean, I was able to get the policy, and the thing where my issue was my neck.
Mm-hmm.
In the way it started, I mean, I would just take a bump and I'd get pain that would shoot down my arm like electricity, and what I found out was nerves in my neck. That I had two herniated discs, in my neck. And, he said, we could go back in and fuse that. He says, but if you go back and wrestle again, and that's the way we're going to have to, that's what we have to do to fix it. He says, but if you continue to wrestle, he says, and you hurt it again, I mean, there's a chance that, it could leave you paralyzed or worse, So the only thing worse than paralyzed is dead.
Right. And good for you for being able to collect. It sounds like Kurt Hennig was not quite so lucky here, and you had an irrefutable circumstance on your side, so that's great.
Yeah.
Did a lot of wrestlers view Lloyd's as an exit plan, meaning eventually in wrestling, everybody's going to get injured, and after investing a lot of money into a policy, maybe some guys were viewing it as their retirement plan?
You know what? I don't know. I really don't. I mean, it's kind of like and I can't remember who told me about it, that they had gone ahead and got that policy. And I said, golly, it's like, that's great. I thought, oh my gosh, well, what a great thing to get if you can get it. And, and I went and I got it. And then as it turned out, a neck injury.
Good investment for you.
Yeah.
That being said, what kind of investment were you making? Like, what kind of payments were you making to Lloyds of London? I've heard they were pretty crazy.
You know what, Marcus? I couldn't tell you. I can't remember what they were.
It was a long time ago, but I would imagine it's in the thousands per month to be part of that.
I don't know. I really don't.
Well, we're all worked out for you, but man, a guy like Kurt Hennig, who had a legitimate beef, was injured, had been paying into this, and then couldn't collect his $300,000. Obviously, he was still physically fit enough to wrestle because he would go on to wrestle, but still, it's like, kind of goes to show it's, man, kind of a bummer to have insurance sometimes.
Yeah.
If Lloyd's, hypothetically, Ted, if Lloyd's had refused to pay you out like they did with Hennig for whatever reason, do you think you would have continued to wrestle after you recovered from your neck surgery?
No. I mean, it's kind of like when the doctor tells you, this, if you keep messing with this could leave you partially paralyzed or I guess if something cut off, I don't know if that was even possible, but I don't know if he meant dead, but there's nothing much worse than being paralyzed or just not able to, and to come to find out that became a common injury. I mean, I think Jake had the same thing.
Yep, sure did. And I'm sure you guys weren't the only ones that get necks fused and have to go through that whole thing. It does kind of make you wonder about Kurt Hennig, though. If he had received this payout from Lloyds of London, he would have stopped wrestling. He passed away in 2003. A lot of it was drug use. I don't know how much of that drug use had to do with the fact that he was in severe pain.
Yeah, I don't either.
Man, could have prolonged his life possibly if he had stepped away from wrestling and started becoming an announcer.
Yeah.
So it's a shame, man. But that is going to wrap us up for this week. We will continue the story of your time in WCW sometime soon. Before we go, I need to remind everyone to get over to YouTube. It's youtube.com/@everybody's-got-a-pod. Get over there, get subscribed. Ted and I have a lot of short clips over there, including YouTube exclusive clips with stories that you don't get to hear on the show. Also, the Hacksaw Hour podcast with Hacksaw Jim Duggan lives exclusively on that YouTube page. And if you haven't heard it, you're missing out on some amazing content from Jim. It's free to subscribe and begin enjoying all the great stuff that we have there right now. So take a second, subscribe, and be part of it. Again, it's youtube.com/@everybody's-got-a-pod. You can follow Ted on social media at MDM Ted DiBiase on all social platforms. And again, you can follow and DM me at Marcus P. D'Angelo on X. Ted, another really fun episode in the books. Always interesting to hear about this period of time. WCW run. It was brief, but certainly memorable. We'll continue the story sometime soon, my friend.
That's great. And as I go, I have to remind everybody once again that everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
See you guys next time right here on Everybody's Got a Pod.
$1 million dream, tell them all good night. Everybody's got a pod, everybody's got a